Another year, another 12 months of movie releases, and the slate is thick with delayed projects pushed back after the SAG-AFTRA and Writers Guild strikes of 2023. Find out more in our full breakdown video. But there's still no shortage of brand new films coming out this year too, so in today's video, I'm going to talk about all the ones that I'm excited for and which ones I will be avoiding. Happy New Year! Welcome back to the Women's Direction. We've got some big plans for this year, but of course we need to kick things off by talking about all the movies that are going to come out this year. But I did want to have a little bit of a focus as well on all of the female-directed films that are coming out this year. Basically, I looked at the annual celluloid ceiling report from Dr. Martha Luzon at the San Diego State University, which looks at the employment of women in the top-grossing US films from that year. It found that only 16% of the top 250 grossing US films had women directors. And this is actually a decline from 2022 and the lowest this statistic has been since 2020. I think the popularity of Barbie last year really kind of overshadowed how underrepresented women are behind the camera still, and not just as directors. 94% of the top 250 grossing films didn't have any women cinematographers. 86% had no women composers, 74% had no women writers, and 72% had no women editors. I was feeling a little dejected and down about fighting for gender equality towards the end of last year, and was also suffering from a little bit of creative burnout, which is why you didn't get any December video, but hearing statistics like that got me super fired up again, because the lack of progress that's been made over the last 10 years is just really frustrating. Anyways, all of this to say that I will be drawing specific attention to all of the films directed by women coming out in 2024, and I would really encourage you to go out and see as many of those as you can, particularly in the cinema, which is kind of where execs look at those numbers and decide what's doing well or not. So if you can, go out and see as many female-directed films this year, on top of all the other ones that you would normally see anyway. Okay, should we just talk about some movies? Let's talk about some movies. Kicking things off, of course, with the first month of the year, January, which is admittedly now nearly over, but let's talk about all the films that came out anyway. From the director of award-winning documentary Blackfish, Gabriella Cowperthwaite, comes sci-fi thriller I.S.S. Released on January 19th, I.S.S. takes place in a space station sometime in the near future. When a worldwide conflict breaks out on Earth, the US and Russian astronauts each receive orders from the ground. Take control of the station by any means necessary. I would say that thriller is probably one of my favorite genres, so the premise for this film sounds like something that is right up my alley, but let me know if you've seen the film in the comments below and what you thought of it. Good Grief is Dan Levy of Schitt's Creek fame's directorial debut, and should already be streaming on Netflix. A comedy drama that follows an artist grieving the loss of his famous writer husband takes his two best friends on a trip to Paris, where they unpack messy secrets and hard truths. Looking at Dan Levy's other projects, I expect this to be comedic, but also full of heart and speak poignantly about things that are relatable, so it's definitely on my watch list. On January 26th, hopefully the day you're watching this video, director Rachel Lambert's Sometimes I Think About Dying is set to release in cinemas. Starring Daisy Ridley as a socially awkward woman who tries to make a connection with a friendly new co-worker who takes her on a date. A seemingly simple premise, but I'm sure there's a lot of weight in the characters and the writing. I actually haven't seen any of other Rachel Lambert's films, so I'm looking forward to exploring the work of a new director to me. Other films released in January include Society of the Snow, Mayhem, Night Swim, Inshallah a Boy, The Book of Clarence, Inside the Yellow Cocoon Shell, Miller's Girl, The Underdogs, Totem, and Housekeeping for Beginners. Alright, moving on to February. From one half of the Coen brothers comes Drive Away Dolls. Margaret Qualley and Geraldine Viswanathan star as stuck-in-a-rut friends whose road trip to Tallahassee gets them through no fault of their own, mixed up with some criminals. A quirky journey full of mishaps and characters with tons of personality is what I'm expecting from this, so I do hope that it lives up to that expectation. Plus the rest of the cast list sounds great. You've got Pedro Pascal, Beanie Feldstein, and Coleman Domingo all on the list, so... Drive Away Dolls is set to release in theaters on February 23rd. Lisa Frankenstein is a campy young adult take on the Mary Shelley classic that sees a high schooler reanimating a corpse that becomes their love interest. This movie is the feature film debut from director Zelda Williams and also has the writer from Jennifer's Body, Diablo Cody, attached. My hope for this film is that they really do play into that campiness and make a dark comedy sort of reminiscent of early Tim Burton. Think like Edward Scissorhands rather than Wednesday. Carla Gugino is also in it, which is a positive sign for me, but we only have to wait till February 9th to find out if it's any good. The live-action Spider-Man spin-off series continues with Sony Pictures' latest edition, Madam Web. Dakota Johnson stars as a clairvoyant who becomes entangled with multiple superheroes. Sydney Sweeney, Celeste O'Connor, Isabel Merced, and Tahar Rahim also star in this film directed by S.J. Clarkson. Now, I think I'm well and truly burnt out from the superhero film, but I did see something online that kind of intrigued me. It was a conspiracy theory, if you will, that Sony Pictures are making these live-action Spider-Man spin-offs deliberately not good. I missed the release of the trailer for Madam Web at the time, but apparently there was one line in it that just became a massive meme overnight.
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
And then I was reading this Guardian article that sort of outlined some of the other moves that Sony has made, like taking Venom and then making a sequel that, quote, effectively operated as an outright parody of the first film. And re-releasing Morbius back into the cinemas after its commercial failure, quote, just so people could go and mock it as a collective. Best business decision Sony ever made? I suppose only time will tell if these Spider-Man spin-offs are lasting cult classics or just meme-worthy bad cinema. Madam Web releases on Valentine's Day, of all days, February 14th. Other films releasing in February include Argyle, How to Have Sex, Orion in the Dark, The Promised Land, It Ends With Us, Upgraded, The Taste of Things, Bob Marley One Love, Bleeding Love, and About Dry Grasses. Alright, let's move on to March. Set for a Sundance 2024 debut and a March 22nd theatrical release from comedian and satirist Kobe Levy comes a film that I am not going to say the full title of. So here it is! The film follows a young man who gets recruited into a secret society of black people who are meant to make white people's lives easier. Justice Smith leads the film, which sounds to me like a crossover between Dear White People and Sorry to Bother You. This next one I am pretty excited about, and it is the next film from Oscar-winning director Bong Joon-ho. Mickey 17 stars Robert Pattinson as an expendable employee who is sent out to colonize a foreign world, who, when he dies, is simply replaced with a clone who shares his memories. An adaptation of the science fiction book of the same name, written by Edward Ashton, this film is stacked with cast including Steven Yeun, Mark Ruffalo, and Toni Collette. And it's currently slated for a March 29th release. That's right, it's another lesbian romance movie starring Kirsten Stewart. Let's go! Lou is a reclusive gym manager who falls hard for Jackie, an ambitious bodybuilder who's heading to Las Vegas to follow her dream. Their love, however, soon leads to violence as they're pulled deep into the criminal web of Lou's family. This will be the second feature from St. Maud director Rose Glass, and it looks like it's gonna be a gritty action drama romance for the gays, so I am here for it. Love Lies Bleeding releases on March 8th. Editor Carla Gutierrez's directorial debut Frida releases on Prime Video on March 14th. The film is a look into the life of Frida Kahlo as told by her own words, using diaries, letters, essays, and interviews. Carla has previously been an editor on documentary films such as Pray Away, RBG, and Wonder Woman, the untold story of American superheroines. So this compilation of words and thoughts is expectantly going to be expertly cut together to provide an interestingly fresh perspective on Frida's life. Other films releasing in March include Spaceman, Ricky Stenicki, Kung Fu Panda 4, Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, Irish Wish, Damsel, Cabrini, Arthur the King, and Riddle of Fire. And here we are at April. Another holdover from 2023, pushed back because of the strikes, is Challengers, from director Luca Guadagnino, stars Zendaya as a tennis star turned coach in a love triangle with competing champions, played by Josh O'Connor and Mike Faist. You wouldn't think a film about tennis would be so rife with tension and drama, but this one looks like it could be a little bit spicy. Challenges is due for release on the 29th of April. Now, I haven't really spoken about films that are coming out that I'm not very excited for yet, but I think we've arrived at that moment because Godzilla vs. Kong New Empire is not a film that gets me particularly hyped. Due to hit theaters on April 5th, this is the sequel that continues the story from Godzilla vs. Kong, which is a story I didn't think we needed more of, but apparently we do. Hopefully it will at least be entertaining. Another film I'm not particularly excited about through no fault of its own, bar the fact that it is a horror film, is the first Omen. When a young American woman moves to Rome in service of the church, she soon encounters a mysterious darkness in this prequel to Richard Donner's classic, notoriously cursed film, The Omen. The first Omen stars Nell Tiger-Free and is directed by Akasha Stevenson with a April 5th release date. If I was any sort of horror fan, I might be excited for this, but I'm not, so sadly I will not be going to see this one. Other films releasing in April include Musica, The Beast, The People's Joker, Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, The Feeling That the Time for Doing Something Has Passed, and Unsung Hero. Alright, May. Marissa Abella stars as late Grammy Award-winning singer Amy Winehouse in this biopic from director Sam Taylor Johnson. Back to Black is set to release on May 10th and will cover the life of Amy Winehouse in all of its glory and tragedy. Some people have complained about the film being put in production, but it does have backing from the Winehouse estate and very respectful intentions coming from the production team, so it looks like it's going to be a pretty heart-wrenching watch. It has been nearly a decade since the release of Fury Road, and almost what feels as twice as long since Furiosa has been in production, but on May 24th we will finally get the next installment of George Miller's Mad Max franchise, Furiosa. This prequel was centered around the early days of Furiosa, now played by Anya Taylor-Joy, and promises the visual splendor of Fury Road, yet I can't help but feel a little indifferent to this release. I did enjoy Fury Road, I'm just not jumping out of my seat to go and see this, but who knows, I may end up in the cinemas seeing it anyway, I probably will. Other films releasing in May include The Idea of You, Evil Does Not Exist, Horoscope, My Ex-Friend's Wedding, The Garfield Movie, and The Fall Guy. June! We are halfway through, baby! Inside Out 2 comes to theaters on May 14th, reuniting us with Riley as she enters adolescence, and some new emotions have taken up residence inside her head, including the dreaded anxiety, voiced by Maya Hawke. I absolutely loved the first Inside Out, so here's hoping that the sequel can recapture some of that relatability and they don't focus on trying to be too funny or too kitsch. Other films releasing in June include The Watchers, Bad Boys 4, The Blue Angels, A Quiet Place Day 1, Ballerina, and The Bike Riders. July! Deadpool 3. It's really just Deadpool 3. I guess there's Twisters, which is a sequel to the 90s disaster film Twister. Oh, and Despicable Me 4. Can someone explain to me how they're still milking those bloody minions for cash? August! So something that only people who know me personally or who have come across my content from that space will know is that I am a huge gamer. As someone who's not particularly fond of a difficult boss fight, I don't know, Borderlands had this way of making me want to come back and try it again and again, and just gripped me in a way that no other game had. I also absolutely love the writing in the games. The darkness and the silliness of the comedy just like hit in the absolute correct spots for me. So when I heard they were making a film adaptation, there was definitely a part of me that got excited. And then I remembered how gory the video games are, and I'm not one for gore, so I'm not sure that I could actually stomach a live-action Borderlands, but just listen to some of the people who are in this cast, okay? We've got Jack Black, Cate Blanchett, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Kevin Hart, just to name a few. Also directed by Eli Roth. It's gonna come out on August 9th, so I guess I'll wait and see if I'm gonna be able to brave it then. Other films releasing in August include Harold and the Purple Crayon, Trap, Flint Strong, Speak No Evil, and Horizon, an American Saga Chapter 2. Alright, we are flying through the year. We've reached September. On September 6th, nearly 40 years after the original cult classic Beetlejuice released, Tim Burton and Michael Keaton are back with the next chapter. Winona Ryder returns as Lydia Dietz, and Jenna Ortega is going to be playing her daughter. The cast also includes Catherine O'Hara and Willem Dafoe, with a script from the showrunners of his Netflix Addams Family adaptation Wednesday, which, after seeing Wednesday, does not leave me that excited. I was a massive Tim Burton girl growing up as a teenager, but the more recent Tim Burton properties just don't really have that same oddness that attracted me to his work in the first place. The newer projects sort of feel like they're cashing in on that, like, not like other girls aesthetic. It has just completely lost all authenticity, so I'm not very excited about this sequel at all. Other films releasing in September include Transformers 1 and The Wild Robot. Alright, we've reached spooky month, October. October 4th sees the release of Joker 2, Folie et deux. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I really disliked the first Joker movie, and I am well aware I'm probably in a minority here. I thought it was self-indulgent, and I thought it treated its female characters appallingly. Rachel Leishman from The Mary Sue actually gave a great breakdown on the poor treatment of the women in the Joker. I'll include a link to the article down below, but essentially one of the main issues was how they treated Arthur's mother. You know, they took this mentally ill woman who was suffering from abuse and trauma of her own and made her like the root of all evil for Arthur, which was just appalling. Anyways, I know a lot of people are excited for this movie, but you will not catch me anywhere near the cinemas when this one comes out. Other films releasing in October include A Smile sequel, Terrifier 3, and The Wolfman. Alright, November, here we go. What is really strange to me about 2024 is the amount of sequels we're getting to films that came out like over a decade or so ago. So on November 22nd, we get Ridley Scott's Gladiator 2. The original Gladiator film made a movie star out of Russell Crowe, won Best Picture at the Oscars, and made a ton of money, so I mean, surely the sequel won't do terribly. The original Gladiator also killed off its main character, so this time Paul Mescal will be starring in the titular role. Only time will tell if Scott will be able to recreate the success of the first film. Other films releasing in November include Wicked Part 1, The Amateur, and Alto Nights. Alright, time to get your Christmas decorations out again because we've reached December. And just in time for Christmas, we get the remake of the classic 1920s silent film Nosferatu. From director Robert Eggers, who honestly is the only person that makes sense to direct this 1920s classic, we get Bill Skarsgård as the vampiric Count Orlok, and Lily Rose Depp as the object of his obsession. A historical classic horror in black and white is kind of what Eggers has made himself known for, so I may even have to break my no horror rule to go see this one. Other films releasing in December include Karate Kid, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and Mufasa, the Lion King. We made it through the year, however, there are still some films hanging around out there on the internet with no release date yet that we could find ourselves watching in 2024. Some of these include Janet Planet, written and directed by the Pulitzer Prize-winning Annie Baker. Janet Planet follows a young girl, Lacey, in Western Massachusetts over summer vacation in 1991, and her mother, Janet, an acupuncturist that everybody is drawn to. The film is structured into sections, each one following an adult that comes into Lacey and Janet's life. The film is scheduled for a spring 2024 release. Next is His Three Daughters. Premiering at TIFF in September before being bought by Netflix, Azazel Jacobs' film is the story of three sisters, played by Carrie Coon, Elizabeth Olsen, and Natasha Lyonne, who've holed up in their dying father's Lower East Side apartment, waiting for the moment that keeps never arriving. Currently, there's no release date on this one, but considering it's been bought by Netflix, we can probably expect it on our screens sometime in 2024. Alice Rohrwacher's La Chimera is set in a magical realist version of 1980s Tuscany, where a lovable band of robbers breaks into Etruscan tombs in search of treasure, led by a lovelorn Englishman. Sounds delightfully quirky, but currently there's no release date for this one. And finally, here are some other films with no release date that could very maybe possibly potentially come out in 2024. A Different Man, A Family Affair, Babes, Black, White and Blue, The Actor, The Breaking Ice, Civil War, Cora Bora, Conclave, Cuckoo, Divorce in the Black, Ezra, The Fabulous Four, Heater, Holland, Michigan, House of Spoils, I Saw the TV Glow, The Jealousy Man, The Kitchen, Knox Goes Away, Lonely Planet, Look Into My Eyes, The Monk and the Gun, Perfect Days, The Piano Lesson, Players, Resball, Shirley, 6888, Space Cadet, Stop Motion, Tuesday, Uglies, Widow Cliquot, and Woman of the Hour. It is still really disappointing to see how few films directed by women are currently on the slate for 2024, and particularly women of colour who appear non-existent in the director's chair, at least from the list that I could find. But as usual, the schedule of releases often shifts and changes with the events of the coming year, so who knows, things could look totally different by the end of next year. Next year? This year. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you've now compiled a list of all those films that you want to see in 2024. Let me know what you're most and least excited about watching in the comments below, and while you're down there, consider subscribing. We release a new video every single month, and I'm even gonna try and maybe do 2 videos a month this year. So, no promises, but that is the plan. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at The Women's Direction, and with that, I will see you in the next video. Bye! I will apologize in advance if you can hear the fan the entire way through this video, but without it, I think I would literally pass out. It is so friggin' hot today. So you get fan noise. God, it's so hot. The mowing. I'm sorry guys, you're just gonna have to deal with the mowing. Good Grief is Dan Levy of Schitt's Dean and Domingo Coleman. No, Coleman Domingo. We finally get the next installment in George Lucas. No, George Lucas is a different guy. And the mower's back. What could they possibly have left to mow? I should not be living in Australia. It's hot. They mow.